James and John went up into the mountain. And when they went up into the mountain, Peter, James, and John became weary and tired. For the journey was in the midst of the setting of the sun. It was late in the evening. They had been with Jesus all day long. You know how you are if you are in church all day long. At the end of the day, you want to find your corner, sit down, catch a nap or two. You want to rest from being involved with the Master all day long. All day long, they had traveled with Jesus. All day long, they had listened to the words of the Master. But now the Master wanted them to climb up on top of a mountain. And just because of the fact that Jesus invited them, they went with Jesus on top of the mountain. But when they got on top of the mountain, they found themselves so exhausted, so worn, so tired, that they wanted to sit out on top of the mountain. And while they were sitting, Jesus stepped aside to have a talk with the Master. He wanted to talk with his daddy. He wanted to talk with God. And I want you to know, just a little talk with him will make everything all right. Don't you know Jesus also told us that now that we're in him, we can call on the name of his Father and call him our Father just the same by saying Abba, Abba, which means Father. Whatever you stand in need of, just call on his name. Say Abba, say Father, call on him however you choose. I'm here to tell you, he'll answer, he'll answer. And Jesus had that kind of relationship with his Father, that whenever he called on, whenever he called on his daddy was always quick to respond. His Father answered when he called, and while he was there, calling on the name of the Father, the glory of the Father came down on him. His raiment was white and glistering, white, so much so that they were shining as if they were glory. No bleach was able to cause this type of glistering from the way in which Jesus was shining. Jesus was white and glistering, but then also God gave Jesus heavenly visitors. He allowed Moses to step down for a little bit and have a talk with the Master. He allowed Elijah to step down and have a talk with Jesus. And the record tells us that they talked with Jesus about his decrease. That was his pending death in Jerusalem interjected and said, Jesus, you know God required a sacrifice. The Lord tells us that there cannot be any redemption without the shedding of some blood. Moses said, the Lord, blood must be shed for our redemption. So Jesus, you must shed your blood for the redemption of mankind. Moses and Elijah had a little talk with Jesus. But while they were talking and Jesus had prayed, the disciples, Peter, James, and John, were weary, so much so that they were fast asleep. But Peter woke up right about the end of this dialogue with Elijah and Moses. He woke up and just shook off his drowsiness, just as Moses and Elijah was about to depart. And he got up and said, Lord, it's good to be here. In essence, he was saying, I'm glad, Master, that I'm here to see your manifest glory. I'm glad that I'm here to see Moses and Elijah come back to life. I'm glad that I'm here, so much so that I want to build a memorial. Let us memorialize this event. I want to build a monument to represent you. And then I want to build 2 more monuments to represent Moses and Eli. But then the heavenly guests disappeared. And then while Peter was still speaking, a cloud came and overshadowed him. And clouds represents the glory and the presence of God. And so by the cloud overshadowing me, the word is telling us that God was in the midst, and God had something to interject in the conversation between Peter and Jesus. God had something that he wanted Peter to hear. God has something that he wants all of us to hear. And so God said, this is my beloved son. Son.